Good morning. Welcome. Video 4 of 5 on how to eliminate anxiety. Good morning. I'm just going to wait again a few moments like I always do for Facebook to send out the notification that I am live right now. Today, again, is video 4 of 5. I'm excited if you've made it this far and have watched the videos all along. Thank you for being here. If you're catching replays, thank you. As always, if you have questions, comments, concerns, let me know. I'm here to help. I'm here to walk beside you on the journey of eliminating anxiety. So if you're here, pop down below in the comments, say hi, maybe give me a like or a love, just so I know who is here and on board with me today. So I wanted to share a story. I work with a counselor. He is a spiritual counselor. So we do a lot of meditation. There's some hypnosis. We go very deep into my subconscious and work through things. So yesterday I had this amazing experience. Hi, Sue. Where we're working. I've always known there's this much younger age that I had a trauma, and I could never remember exactly what it was. Like, what was the first time my fight or flight had truly kicked on? And during my session last night, it was like an amazing aha moment. And it was when I think I was 5 or 6, and I was crossing the street from my house, headed to a friend's house. I had looked both ways twice, like being very careful because I'm a big girl getting across the street by myself. And out of nowhere, I hear a car driving really fast towards me. So I turn and I'm hit and I go flying back 6 feet. My initial reaction was to hide. I fled. I totally ran, hid under my bed. My mom had no idea I was there. These poor people had to come to my house, tell my mom that they had just hit me with their car. And she had to go find me, which is kind of wild. So, but it was just this moment of like, oh my goodness, that was a really traumatic experience. I've always kind of like passed off. It was like no big deal, but man, think about as being a kid, like it was my fault. That was totally what I thought. And it was this like full body, overwhelming sense of fear and anxiety. So I don't know, pretty cool story. And as we go through this eliminating anxiety, there's so many tools and so many practices that can do just that for you. So we'll get going with the call for today. So video 4 or 5 on how to eliminate your anxiety. Today we're talking about strategies that we're told reduce anxiety, but actually don't work. And this is going to be on 2 levels. One, it's what our ego mind, our conscious mind is telling us is going to work to reduce our anxiety, but it actually doesn't help us. It harms us. And then a second one where there's so many good intentions in the sense of like, do this, do this, do this, of anxiety elimination or reducing, but they're actually not the right tool to align with your type of anxiety or the level of anxiety that you have. So I want to talk about that today. As we go along, if you have any questions, please let me know. I also want to let you know that if you recognize you're doing some of these coping strategies, there's no judgment on my end, right? I've done probably every single one of these that I'm going to talk about. And so you're not alone in how we cope with things. It's our survival mechanism, okay? So a human with an ego mind, we seek these experiences that are either going to prove, empower, or protect a belief system that we have or a perception of how we view reality. Now, here's a crazy fact. Our unconscious mind, so the one that is like doing the work without you knowing it, knows the behavior we're going to choose 6 seconds before our conscious mind is aware that that's the behavior we're going to choose. So if you've ever been in a moment where you've reacted in a way or behaved in a way and you're like, why did I just do that? There's this programming in our subconscious mind that is saying, if this happens, I react this way. And it's almost instantaneous. And so this becomes a default mode for us. Thoughts, feelings, different physical sensations that we receive from sensory information coming in elicits a response. And that behavior is what happens. So these coping strategies that I'm going to talk about, these things that are supposed to help us, reduce our anxiety but don't work. It's this unconscious programming that creates these, again, to either prove, empower, or protect us. So stay tuned to the very end of the video. I want you to hear all of these so we can figure out which strategies we use that are actually doing more harm than good. Now, question I want you to ask yourself as we're going through these is, what strategies have you used in the past to reduce your anxiety that have worked, as well as what strategies you've used in the past that did not work? Because when we know that continuum of what works, what doesn't, we can figure out what would be most aligned for you right now. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Again, this is all awareness, no judgment. So the first style of strategy that we think is going to help us but actually harms us is called escapism. And you may know this as, simply avoiding anything that you really don't want to deal with there in that moment. We totally absorb our mind in this alternate reality. Now, there's a fine line here. Some of these things that I'm going to talk about are good. They're ways to downshift. They're ways to relax. What happens is we cross a line and it becomes a true avoidance technique and a solution to our problems and our feelings of anxiety. And that's when it becomes escapism. That's when it becomes harmful and not helpful when we're trying to reduce our anxiety. So this coping strategy, there's two definitions. There's one which is in the dictionary, which is the avoidance of reality by absorption of the mind, an entertainment or an imaginative situation, activity, etc. Now, psychology, and maybe you've worked with a counselor or therapist before and heard of it this way, it's the tendency to evade the real world, looking for a desired security and tranquility in this fantasy world. So I know I did this a lot early on, and I still can feel myself slipping into that mode of it's a numbing out, a disassociation to the true reality of what's going on. I mean, I would lose focus of anything around me other than the activity that I was doing. So this strategy is to help us manage anything that threatens to shatter our ego. And if you're not familiar with ego, it's that protective mechanism our mind has to really hold strong to whatever belief or value that we have. So if anyone comes at us with that, it's our ego's responding to it. So types of strategies that the ego mind uses in an escapism way are TV. So again, you're like, oh, TV's not that bad. I really love this show. It's the point of where you choose to binge watch so much TV because you don't want to deal with a situation or the environment you're in. It's when it becomes the solution to not having to deal with something. So any TV, scrolling, whether that's on the internet or social media, on our phones. Now, here's one that, again, there's a fine line. So trips, vacations. It becomes escapism when we're choosing to do those to escape our everyday life. Now, you're like, oh, well, I work so hard, I deserve a vacation. Yes, that's true. But if your everyday life, if you need to escape from your everyday life, there's some choices and some things that you could maybe shift and change to where you don't have to escape life, that you love life. Now, right now, that may seem impossible, but there are so many simple daily practices that you can do that will help you shift to a life where you don't need to take a vacation. That taking a vacation is simply a way to grow and expand and experience more. Drugs, alcohol, sex, those are all pretty well-known ways of escaping a problem that you don't want to deal with. Reading, even working out, and daydreaming. So those are all ways of escapism. Now, if you've done any of these, again, no judgment, just awareness of how this actually can heighten our anxiety. For the moment, when we're in that moment of escaping and not dealing with our problems, the problem doesn't go away. It's still there. So when we come back to it, it maybe even got worse because we didn't deal with it like head on. We just avoided it. So know that awareness is the first step. So once you become aware that you're doing these things, there's next steps that you can take to alter your coping strategy. The next one is an ego defense behavior. So again, ego mind, prove, empower, or protects our belief systems. So this defense mechanism works on a very deep unconscious level, and it helps us ward off unpleasant feelings. As humans, we don't want to feel pain. We don't want to feel things that are not pleasant. So our ego is there to help us avoid that. And it's supposed to help us feel better. So ego defense mechanisms are natural, they're normal. But when they get out of proportion, so if you use this all the time in lots of different situations, that's when it becomes a more harmful than helpful way of coping with anxiety. So as I go through these, again, just open your mind, open your heart, see if there's some that you're like, oh, yep, totally do that. Again, I've probably done each one of these over the many, many years that I've worked with anxiety. So no judgment. So most common ego defense mechanisms or behaviors. One is denial. So you deny that there's any failing to your own behavior. Like it's to protect your self-esteem. You're like, no, I didn't do that. So denial is the first one. Next one is repression. So you just simply forget anything bad that happened. And again, protective, right? If something really traumatic really like happened to you, or if there was some sort of chronic stress, you're going to start to forget those things because they're unpleasant to think about. They're unpleasant to deal with. The next one is regression. So that's reverting back to this childlike emotional state in which your unconscious fears, anxieties, and general angst starts to reappear. Maybe you've noticed it in yourself or others that they're more childlike in their ability to manage their emotions and to manage challenges that come up. So this is a true defense mechanism to anything that they have on the undercurrent of how they feel. Next one is displacement. So this is where you transfer your original feelings about anything and you will push it to someone else to make that person the target of that feeling that you have against yourself. So you'll typically see this with like anger or rage. And so when someone's triggered something, someone's brought something up for you, instead of keeping that anger towards yourself for whatever reason, you spew it out on someone else. So that's you're displacing the uncomfortable, unpleasant feelings to someone else. Most of the time, they're like the harmless bystander, whoever's closest, whoever's in your vicinity. And I know I've done this before. Afterwards, you're like, oh man, why did I do that? That guilt, the shame, is just this like endless cycle of things. And another one that's very similar to that is projection. So these inner thoughts, feelings, emotions, you project them onto the other person as if they are doing it. So any sense of helplessness or any sense of self-esteem, like you feel this way about me, like you're projecting what you feel internally outwardly onto someone else. 3 more. So the next one is reaction formation. And so this is expressing the opposite of your inner feelings to the outside. So say you're feeling really sad, you're gonna explain and express the complete opposite of that in an emotion or in a reaction. The next one is intellectualization. Oh my gosh, my words are all over the place today. So you use more of your intellect to think away the emotion, to think away the feelings that you have, any of the ones that you really don't enjoy feeling. So there's this very much, it's in your mind and you try to analyze and compartmentalize. It's all up in the brain. Another one similar to that is rationalization. So you try to explain away the sense of anxiety, the anxious feelings, the anxious behaviors that you have. And then the last one is sublimation. So that occurs when people transform conflicted emotions into a productive outlet. This one, you're like, well, they're using, I or you are using this feeling, these conflicted emotions, and we're channeling it into a productive outlet. So yes, it's a good coping strategy. What happens when it gets harmful is when we take it too far. The things that are good for us, but we do it in excessive amounts. And then the last big kind of way of dealing with anxiety that's really harmful to us versus being helpful for us reducing or eliminating anxiety is one that can be really a sensitive topic. So anything that I say here, if you've experienced these, I encourage you to reach out to a trusted counselor, therapist, friend, family, even me, because these ones can be painful. So it's self-defeating, self-harm, or self-destructive. Our ego is trying to protect us, empower us, or prove something. This one leans more to the proving. You feel unworthy, you feel powerless, you feel the fear, so you need to prove why you feel all that stuff. And so these behaviors are anything that's causing intentional damage to your body, relationships, or even your lifestyle. This can include overspending. It can include isolating yourself because you don't want to be a burden to others. It could be a hypersexuality. It could be putting the needs of others before your own to a point that you don't take care of you and you're giving and giving and giving until you're completely burned out. Maybe you choose to eat too much or too little as a way of punishment. Maybe you find that you're in a pattern of toxic or abusive relationships, and that's not always interpersonal. It could be family and friends as well, or even work environments. You maybe put yourself in risky situations, things that could cause harm to your body. Body-focused repetitive behaviors. Now, this is one, some of this style, you would like, oh, that's not self-harm or self-defeating, but it can lead to it. So one is either pulling hair out, whether it's on your head or on your eyebrows. It could be fingernails. So things that are repetitive, but maybe not necessarily cause like real strong physical harm. Maybe avoiding going to the doctor because you're like, well, I'm not worthy enough to be taken care of. That could also be accepting help from others. Maybe you sabotage important relationships, again, because of that worthlessness that you may feel. The use of excessive use of drugs and alcohol, again, can be very damaging on all levels. This was another interesting one, is not dressing appropriately for the weather. So if it's in the winter, not having the appropriate wear because you want to feel the pain and it's almost a sense of punishment. Or on the other end, if it's too hot, wearing too many layers because again, you want to feel some discomfort on a physical level because you're feeling it within maybe your mind and emotions. And then here's one that's a productive, positive outlet, but can go too far, is exercising. So it becomes self-defeating and self-harm when you over-exercise. And then the biggest one, true self-harm, where you're causing physical pain and damage to your body. So again, if you recognize any of these as your coping strategy to anxious feelings and states, I encourage you to reach out to someone. You're not alone in this. And these feelings can be very, very big and very, very real. And we want them to stop somehow. And so we may be choosing things that are actually more harmful to us. So now the second way of strategies that we are told help us, but actually can do more harm. Again, these are the ones where whoever's sharing it, they have the best intentions. They have the want to you to feel better. So they're offering all of this advice. And these are these self-care practices. They're great and they're useful, but there's a time and a place for each tool. So things like meditation or massage or hot baths and showers and essential oils or herbs with teas, general self-care things, they may be a lot for you to choose to do right now. Maybe and then that kind of starts the cycle of why can't I do it? Why am I not doing it? And that spiral down happens. So those are good intentions. They're told that, yes, these are going to work for you if you have anxiety, but they may not work for you in the moment. they're great maintenance tools. And so this is where there's the gap in this industry of self-help, self-development, is we have either really intensive practices like seeing a counselor, having a meditation practice, something that takes time. And then we have these more like surface things. So you're thinking sensory information. So essential oils and teas. We have that on either end. But where's the middle? Where are the tools that when you're in the moment of heightened anxiety that will basically biohack your nervous system to bring it from the fight or flight down into that rest or digest, that relaxation response? So that's what I'm going to share tomorrow. So tune back in tomorrow. I'm going to share what works, where the gap is in the industry, what you can do in the moment to calm your system down so that you are able to reach for the tools like meditation, like essential oils, like exercising and nutrition and sleep, and that you can make the choices that align most appropriate for your type of anxiety, for your level of anxiety. So if you've made it to the end, thank you for being here. Again, please reach out if you need help. I am here to help. And have a great and wonderful day. Love you all very much. Bye.